minority government, so would your parties cooperate on a provincial housing strategy that leads to greater action for affordable or social housing? Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, when Andrea Horvath visited my campaign office a couple days ago, she was asked a question like that, and her answer is the same as mine, is we're running to win. Don't assume otherwise. And don't assume it can't be done. And also, I want to point out that the amount of federal dollars we obtained through the work of Jack Layton federally, I forget the exact figure, Michael can shed it, 1.4 billion, I used to go to Michael for numbers. I mean, that came from NDP values, NDP policies, and that ability of working with others. Jack always said proposition versus opposition, and so remember that those are the values of this party. That's why I'm running for it.
I'm willing to work with anybody on any issue, and I think I strongly believe in the policies that my party stands for. That said, like I say, I will work with anybody on any issue. I think it's people that come first.
I think it's got to be totally collaborative. I work seamlessly with the city councilors and the MP. We have a variety of people of different political persuasions there. I would actually argue that housing is so important that it should not be a partisan issue, that the legislature should actually pass a resolution that says we will commit to actually make sure that everyone has a key to a safe place to live. We did that on children's mental health just in this last session. I was very proud of that. People from 3 parties sat down and passed what is one of the best children's mental health programs in the world. I think we need to do a climate change on the environment because we're within a generation of losing enough species that we will not survive. And on housing and dignity, that should be the other. There are some things that should simply be above partisan politics, and I think that the Liberals and the Democrats, if you look at Bob Ray's history in this area and his commitment to co-op housing, this is just something that should not be a political debate. It should be just simply put on the front burner as a universal commitment, and we should hold every MPP accountable for delivering on it.
I'll just read a question from the audience now that we decided to write it down. Currently, there are no controls on rent for tenants living in buildings built since 1991. And once a sitting tenant vacates a unit, the landlord is free to raise the rent to whatever the market will bear. So the question is, do you support the ending of exemptions to rent regulation? Let's start with Glennis.
I'm sorry, I've been working 18 hours. Could you repeat the question again?
Do you support the ending of exemptions to rent regulation?
Do I support the ending of exemptions to rent regulation? I'm not clear. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Well, I'll read the preamble. Currently, there are no controls on rent for tenants living in buildings built since... Yeah, sure.
So is the question that when a unit's sold, the control comes off? Okay. Yes, okay. Okay, so I think that needs to be reviewed. I totally agree. We've had the lowest level of rent increases since we've been in power. They've been running on an average of 1.9%. Under previous governments, they were running in excess of 4%, 6% per year. We announced a review. It is being led right now by Francis Langton. It also looks at the larger issue of affordability of housing, right here to income, minimum income, and those other questions. And I think, yes, we have delivered some of the lowest rent increases ever. I think the new Tenancy Act, which puts cap on that, is certainly for most of the people I talk to, a much more affordable housing market, but I don't think it's sufficient, and I think we do need a review, yes.
So, the NDP, through the work of Sherry DeNovo, actually proposed a tenant rights bill that talked about strengthening rent control, implementing landlord licensing, I could go on and on, extending protection to tenants, proposing the very point that you're talking about. So vacant units, for example, should have rent protection. And guess who voted against it? Or guess who
I would just have to say it was something that I would look at reviewing. I think it's a balance between landlords and tenants, obviously, and it was something I would review, but I would tend to be leaning on keeping controls in place for tenant reduction.
Hi, my name is Renee. I'm with the Toronto Christian Resource Centre in Regent Park, currently building 87 units of deeply affordable housing. I have been a part of the St. Clair West Affordable Housing Group. It took us 10 years to get a 20-unit building built because of red tape. So I just wanted to point out something. Glenn was talking about getting support from all parties, that this shouldn't be a partisan issue in terms of reporting, right? Well, we had all party support on the Ontario Poverty Reduction Strategy, and yet we have more people ending up in food banks. We have more people ending up homeless, so we need to move on from saying it's a good idea, we need to get the job done. So my question is for all the candidates, but I just want to point out that in looking at the party platforms today, I noticed that the Liberal Party is saying that they're considering a housing benefit for low-income people. If they were to implement that benefit, from what the numbers I've seen at this point, it won't do anything to help the poorest among us. As long as the adequacy of social assistance rates for the poorest among us is not dealt with,